לפרוח בר, הנה. Thanks, Ido.
Great. Wow, we lost about 40% between the cool IBM guy and you going home. So this is going to be very different. You've seen a lot of technical presentations. This is not a technical presentation. This is actually something you can take home, and hopefully you won't use it, but unfortunately we all do need to use it. This is big data in health, in healthcare, and let me tell you a little bit about Treato. What Treato does is we create something we call the voice of the patient, which is a very nice marketing name to going out to the internet, going out to the social sphere, and collecting everything that patients and caregivers talk about. It's 2014. People go online, they talk about everything. They talk about the most intimate details of their health experiences, about the drugs that they take, about their diseases, about their conditions, about anything and everything, by the way, to a degree of detail and intimacy that never ceases to amaze me, but they do. They do so in over billions and billions of conversations, creating masses and masses of data and information that practically no one could use up until now. What Treato does is it actually goes out there and sits at that junction between the social web, big data, and health analytics. Let's be a little bit more specific. So when we say social web, for us it goes way beyond just your Facebook or your Twitter. People talk about their health condition, their health experiences everywhere. Thousands and thousands of different sites and communities. It really is what people like to call the long tail of the internet. There's a small diabetes community in Arkansas. There's an even smaller multiple sclerosis community out of Oregon, Nebraska, and there are a few folks in Nazrat Eilit that also talk about their conditions and their drugs. We get there. We go there. And there are hundreds of millions of people speaking there. We go there. They've been talking about it for years. They're talking about it today. We bring all that in. And to give you a sense of scale, to date we've brought in about 2 billion patient conversations from around the web. We pour into our Hadoop infrastructure, and my predecessor just mentioned Hadoop, we pour in about 1 million conversations each and every single day. Those cover basically every single drug and every condition out there, about 40,000 of them. Yes, there are 40,000 drugs and conditions out there. Actually, there are many, many more. But it's a very, very scary world out there. And we do that basically in every single minute of the day. So the amount of data that Jeff Jonas was mentioning, what if you multiply that and multiply that and multiply that? We're there. We're bringing it all in and we're pouring it into our big data infrastructure. So now we have a lot of data, and if I use Ohad's stack analysis, we use simpler words. For us, it's collecting, then understanding, then analyzing, then doing some business around it. But if we go into that understanding and analysis layer, what Treato does is we've developed our secret sauce, if you like, is a combination of a few very, very different pieces of machine learning and semantics and health that help us understand all these billions of conversations in real time on a very, very large scale and still be able to go in very, very deep. And that secret sauce has some NLP built into it, NLP that was built specifically for health and for identifying personal experiences. I started taking a drug as opposed to I saw Yonit Levy last night talk about a new drug, or I got something from a Canadian pharmacy offering me to buy Lipitor or Viagra for 50 cents. We combine it with health ontologies. So think about sending our algorithms to medical school. So we understand the context. And one of the earlier speakers mentioned how critical it is to understand the context. BP could be that big oil company that polluted the Mexican Gulf. It could also mean blood pressure. So you really need to understand the health context. That's the tricky part. And then working with social is basically working with people. So it's not only understanding a language, it's also understanding the human part of it. And it took us quite a few years to build what we call patient language analytics, patient language dictionaries, to understand the slang, the typos, the acronyms, the synonyms, the poor structure. Achi, sababa. How do you understand that? So that combination altogether helps us understand what patients are saying in real time and on such massive scale. And that is, and I know it's a little bit presumptuous, we're sitting here, or you're sitting, I'm standing here in the Tel Aviv University in Israel, but this is actually a part of a very big change that the healthcare industry in the world, and in the US primarily, is going through. It's a completely new set of data. There are thousands of research papers on diabetes, thousands of research papers on each and every cancer kind that you know of. This doesn't exist. The technology wasn't here until now. And we're basically creating a completely new set of insights and data that never existed before. Think about talking to anyone on this audience and about their personal experience with their disease or with their condition, or a friend, a loved one, never mind. It's interesting. What about if I had 100,000 of those? And what if I could start using algorithms and a lot of data, extract insights about the medication's use? Did they use it properly? Did it work? Was it effective? Is it safe? How about their switching behavior? Are they switching to this drug, to that drug? Why? Why are they doing that? If one guy is doing it, 2 people, interesting. What about 5,000? What are their financial considerations? Can they afford it? The healthcare and insurance system in the US is very different than what we have here, but still. Is it in the formulary, in Salat al-Fot? What about their patient journey? The patient journey. I got diagnosed. Then I got treatment. I got better. I got worse. I got hospitalized. I made it. Or, unfortunately, I didn't make it. So it's a completely new set of insights riding on top of those billions of conversations that we refer to as the voice of the patient. And then we do 2 things with it. 2 things that are in essence one thing. The one thing is we help... I told you it's an exciting presentation. Yeah. So, and I know I should be very brief. We do 2 things with it, which are in essence one thing. We help people make health-related decisions based on the aggregate wisdom and experience of the crowd, of the world. Pesach is coming. You're going on vacation. Did you pick your hotel? Who did you rely on? Did you rely on your travel agent, or did you go into TripAdvisor? Are you investing in the stock market? Who do you rely on? Seeking Alpha? A Motley Fool? What other people are thinking, what other people have done. So we're actually going with this and offering it to 2 different entities that are eventually the same thing. One is we go back to the patients, we go back to you, and we say, here you go, have it. So your little gift du jour, your little gift for today is I invite you to Treato.com, completely free, completely open. You can go into Treato.com, no need to register, no need for a password. Type in any drug or any condition and see what other people have experienced with it. You'll be surprised. If I had time, I would sit down, drink some water, and start telling you stories about how this helped people. Last year we helped 25 million people. So you're invited. That's on our consumer side. On the other side, we take those very same insights at a highly more sophisticated level, and we help the industry make good decisions. Make good decisions about how they can improve patient outcomes. The cynics would say that we also help them do better business, but we're not cynical today. So we can actually help them with their new product launches. We can help them understand their competitive environment. Think about everything you're reading about Copaxone, Teva, the stock of the people. New product coming in today 3 times a week, 9% adoption. We saw this coming way, way before it was in the newspaper. We didn't talk about predictive analytics yet. We probably will not today, but that's another very interesting aspect of it. The whole side of commercialization of a drug, the whole aspect of educating patients, educating physicians, and marketing outbound. These are some of the use cases where we deploy this power of the people, or understanding of patients, or as we call it, the patient voice. So I think I'm pretty much up to my 10 minutes. Oh. Okay, so that even leaves us a couple of minutes for questions, and then everyone can be off and go home. So Treato.com, you're invited, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Sounds like you do for a drug dealer, for drug makers.
Maybe also drug dealers.
It is doing for application developers. Maybe you can drug forces.
I actually got a question today about marijuana, so maybe you're not that far off. Absolutely. Yeah, drug manufacturers, it's interesting because we're being fed from the social web, the social sphere. And you know, the healthcare system, I've mentioned the financial services market and the travel market, and those have that combination of social and big data has fundamentally changed those industries. And now the industry is coming into healthcare, and the reason it took it so long is because it's the most regulated and very, very conservative industry. They have the FDA sitting on top of them saying, beware, don't touch anything. But now they're actually starting to embrace this. The FDA has come up with new regulations basically saying, it's okay, you can touch social, be careful, but you can. And we're actually seeing a lot of cooperation with pharma or drug manufacturers. No drug dealers at this point, although it could be an interesting business model. So,
are there any ethical limitations for what people can mine on the web, and especially if you deal with the pharma industry, which people are afraid from or fear of their power, and actually you imprison their power?
No, it's a great question. The underlying thesis of what we do is we leverage publicly available information. We come across sites and communities that are locked down. If you want to go in, you need to go around the gate. And we have the smart guys to go around the gate. We don't go around the gate. If the gate is locked, we back off. So we only use publicly available information. And that's one of the reasons why we have Treato.com. We actually inject transparency back into the system by saying, here are the insights, here it is pharma, but we give it back to patients as well. So patients can go in, they'll see the exact same insights. Less analytics, but the same insights. So in that sense, I think we are even fortunate enough to be able to balance the field a little bit from patients being in the dark and pharma being in the know to here's the same piece of information from everyone, and you can make your own decisions.
Can you give us some statistic about how well are you doing, like numbers of entries per day? Or?
So today we're helping roughly 70,000 people a day via Treato.com.
Entries
To Treato.com, yes. Mostly Americans. We swear that all the Israelis that come in are not people from Treato. We actually have Israelis coming in. Everybody's coming in. The patients are coming in, the physicians are coming in, pharma is coming in, the payers, the providers. We're seeing thousands of universities coming in every week. God knows why, but they do. And we're seeing that traffic actually growing and becoming very, very interesting. On our other end, we're actually today serving quite a number of pharma companies in the US. We're very focused on the US market at this point. Through or across multiple franchises and brands within those pharmas.
How do you process what type of information is more important? Because sometimes you have some information coming from some major research institutions and the medical, and you have information which is coming from just people in the street. How do you make the balance?
Right.
So that
So we're actually only focused on the people from the street. So in this big market, where people are measuring the researchers and people are measuring the physicians, no one's measuring or quantifying the patients. So we've made the strategic decision that we're exclusively focused on the patients, the people from the street. The power is in the numbers. You can get, the first post you get could be some crazy guy. The second one could be another crazy guy. When you get to 27,000, you get to such numbers that they start to be, each and every contributor starts to be insignificant by itself. And that way, you start seeing trends that are very, very clear across. And remember, there's no solicitation, there's no bias. We're not asking a question. Some of the older methods were, let me ask a question, and surprise, surprise, I got an answer to the question that I asked. Yeah. We're not asking, we're eavesdropping. We're basically eavesdropping on people's conversations, quote unquote, doing it with our own crawlers, and we're just taking spontaneous conversations from thousands of sites. So when you get 100,000 conversations about a drug collected from 2,000, 2,100 different sites across the internet, the ability to have bias there or to manipulate the results is almost non-existent. And then we take it through an internal QA process that cleans up stuff that shouldn't be there.
The numbers that you used are actual numbers?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, go into, again, I invite you, go into Treato.com, type a drug. By the way, there's other bias built in. There are, women, for example, are more inclined to participate in social media than men. Women of, older women are more inclined than younger. So there is a certain bias built in, but eventually the insights that you extract are quite valuable, very, very unique.
Are you able to make recommendations about drugs? Because there's
Able is an interesting verb.
yeah?
Can we technically? So it's a great question. The first thing we did at Treato.com was to rate drugs, give a rating to drugs, which one could argue you guys are insane. It's a very brave move to rate drugs, to say that Lipitor is better than Crestor. If there are any doctors in the audience, which I hope there aren't, but if there are, they would tell you that I'm insane saying it. But no, we did not get sued because we have a very, very basic rule. We simply represent, we're the voice of the people. We represent what patients say. So we're not exercising any editorial considerations. We're not exercising any medical considerations. What this guy wrote is nonsense. Delete that, put that in. No. So we can, using NLP, extract experiences that are positive experiences, effectiveness. I took this drug and it worked for me. It helped me. And now when you look at those 100,000 posts, if 30,000 of them say, I took this drug and it helped me, and at the competitors, it's only 20%, you start to get a sense of rating. The next thing we did, we asked our visitors to rate the drugs, just as if it was a movie. So if you go in there, you'll see you can actually rate the drug. And we asked them to note if we have a list of side effects, if they see a side effect that they experience themselves, to say, yeah, I had this as well. And now we're starting to create our own little mini big data of patient engagement, of patient views about the drugs that they are taking. And we're still, to your question, we're still not putting it out there. Recommending proactively, I'm not sure we're that brave at this point. As long as it's the patient, I think we're actually helping people and not putting any bias in there.
Also, you mentioned about the 3,000 websites that you are collecting information from. I assume the big ones like Facebook, Twitter, and others, and smaller ones. What technology are you using?
So, just a comment about your assumption there. You can actually, you'll find that the smaller ones, that community of people who have RA in the Boston area can be as valuable, if not more, than some of the big names that we're all familiar with. Because this is where people come in. It's not 144 characters. This is where people come in and they spill their guts out. They actually speak about the experience in a sense that would be much more helpful to other patients than the Facebooks and the Twitters.
So the long tail is more relevant.
The long tail is fascinating. The long tail is fascinating, and it drives a huge amount of value. Facebook is this big. Twitter is this big. Tumblr, excuse me, and Reddit and Discuss, they're big. But there's a lot of gold in the long tail of the internet. You asked me how we did it. What was the question? Yes. How? So we've built crawlers, which I guess everyone here are familiar with. What's unique about our crawlers is that they can identify or bring back sites that are interesting. Interesting for us means that they are about health and that they include personal experiences. No spam, no commercial stuff, personal experiences. So we can actually, we use these to find sites that are interesting. We bring them home. We take them through a qualification process. We want to make sure there isn't a lot of spam in there, no multiple content. It goes through a cleaning and qualification process.
What, once a day? Or?
Once we qualify the site to be worthy of collection, we stay on top of it. Literally, we're in delay. For some sites, we have a delay of a few minutes. Other sites, a few hours. But it's almost real time. Someone wakes up today in Chicago, writes about their injection from yesterday, Copaxone. We'll know about it tonight. It will be inside the data tonight. One last question.
Example of social networks that you can't crawl?
That you cannot crawl. So, young Mr. Zuckerberg is not very generous. Okay, he allows you to. You cannot crawl Facebook. You can connect to an API, or you can become a partner. And even when you do become a partner, they are not being very generous with the amount of data that they provide. The big ones don't allow you to crawl them. You cannot just crawl Twitter. You need to use third-party data services. There are a handful of big patient communities that do not allow access. Patients like me is an example. But most of them allow access. Some of them even encourage it to the extent that they proactively approach us and ask to be included, because one of the things they get there is they get traffic. Because people come, we don't show the full post. We just show a snippet of the post. So that when people come in, if that's valuable, they're going to go directly back to that site. So we're actually driving traffic back to them. It's a win-win situation. We're done, and we're done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ido. Speaking about big data, we obviously run into issues that have to do with ethics and security. And cybersecurity has two sides. First of all, big data allows cybersecurity to do interesting things that we weren't able to do before. We heard some of this from Jeff Jonas. And we need more cybersecurity once our data is so put out and accessible to so many bodies. I want to thank everybody who was involved in this evening. I wish to thank Asher Tischler and Ohad and Jeff, Irit, Ido, and Yaniv for speaking here. I wish to thank you all for being with us. Good night.